Oh, I don't have my mic open. It will be better that way. Yeah. So, hi everyone. I was just saying in French, bonjour à tout le monde. Bienvenue à cet autre Lunch and Learn. Donc, on a la chance d'avoir avec nous Annabel Thomas, la CEO et fondatrice de la distillerie Nc'Nean. So, Annabel, I was just giving your name and your role there, but we will definitely switch in English. So you don't have to do it in French. Do you speak French?
I understood everything you just said, but I couldn't have said any of it myself. So
okay, that's good. So you understood French. I didn't know that.
Only a little bit. That's because it's easy.
Okay.
I knew what you were saying anyway.
So welcome. Thank you very much for joining us for this Lunch and Learn today. I will just add a few comments in French for the people there who join, and then I'll be back with you. Donc, en fait, ce qu'on a de spécial aujourd'hui, vous voyez une autre personne qui est avec moi, Nick Hardy. Nick, si tu veux prendre 2 secondes pour te présenter, puis on va parler avec Annabel après.
Oui, bien sûr. Ben, merci Eric d'avoir organisé ça. And thank you, Annabel, for joining us. Très excité par la distillerie Nc'Nean, que ça donne que j'ai approché aussi via Instagram et courriel la distillerie il y a 1 mois et demi, parce que j'ai vu le launch sur Instagram. J'étais comme, wow, il faut absolument qu'on travaille avec Nc'Nean. J'aime tout l'aspect autour, tout ce qu'on a entendu sur ces certifiés B Corp, etc. C'est vraiment intéressant. Et donc, voilà, en tant que gros amateur de whisky, ça faisait déjà plusieurs mois que je geekais sur la page Nc'Nean, sur la fermentation, tout ça. Donc, vraiment super heureux d'être là avec vous deux aujourd'hui.
Excellent. Fait que dans le fond, c'est la première fois que j'ai une co-animation pour un Lunch and Learn. Fait qu'on va voir comment on travaille ensemble, Nick. Je suis sûr que ça va bien aller.
Ouais.
Fait que pour tout le monde, si vous avez des questions, l'avantage d'être 2, c'est que Nick va aussi regarder là, les commentaires, les chats. Donc, n'hésitez pas à poser des questions, puis on va définitivement les poser à Annabelle aussi. So, back in English then. So, I'm very happy to have you. I have many questions. I'm sure Nick had also. Roughly, we'll talk about you yourself, your path, and where you are right now. The distillery for sure, your products, the warehouse, and also everything around the production. And at the same time, at the end, one of the reasons we're doing that Lunch and Learn today is definitely to learn more about you, but also because we will have 2 products in order with the Passion Whisky Québec group. And so for sure, we want to talk a little bit about those products as well. So let's jump directly in there, finish the introduction, go in the real thing. So who are you? So why are you there? Why are you now the CEO and founder of a new distillery? Where does this come from?
Well, good question. I ask myself the same question sometimes. So the history of it is I used to be a strategy consultant. So a real classic city corporate job, traveling all over the UK, advising companies on strategy, basically. And I ended up as the founder of a distillery really for 2 reasons. The first is that the distillery is on my parents' farm, and we had sort of had this family dream of creating a distillery for a while. I had taken some time off from my previous job to write a business plan. And when I did that, I did my research and traveled to some other distilleries. And at that point, I felt that there was not enough focus in Scotch on sustainability. And the UK for 20 years now has had this amazing kind of food scene, lots of really great young companies focusing on sustainability, doing the right thing, being very transparent, all those things. And I saw none of it in Scotch.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's potentially a really big problem going forwards. And I feel like this is what I want to do. So I guess that's the moment transitioned from a family dream to something I wanted to do. So that was my research trip. I had to go back to my old job, and then in 2013 it became apparent that we were kind of trying to do this project. My dad and I was holding down full-time jobs, and it just wasn't going to work. So I wanted to leave anyway, and I just thought, well, when am I going to get the chance to start a distillery again?
Yeah,
I should just do it. And that was 10 years ago.
Okay, nice. And so it was a combination of many things, in fact. So a dream that was there for a long time in the family, and then let's say the fact that the Scotch whiskey is big in Scotland for sure, but not focused on sustainability. So you saw an opportunity there.
Exactly.
Saw an opportunity as a businesswoman to do something outside of the big group and have let's say a marketing advantage compared to all the others, or really focus on doing something like a laboratory, something special that people will follow after that?
I think a combination of those things. Yeah. I think mostly I felt that if someone doesn't do this, that's going to be a real problem for Scotch as a category. Mm. We know that younger consumers really care about sustainability, and if Scotch isn't seen to do the right things in that area, then it will lose the confidence of consumers. And we know that there's whiskey being made everywhere, and if Ireland or another country really nails that sustainability messaging and brings along all of the younger generation of consumers as a result, then that's a really sad thing for Scotch. And that, so I guess that was the primary thing. But also alongside sustainability, I felt like there was a lot of just doing things the way they've always been done attitude in terms of production. Yeah. And I really felt like we could create something special and unique just from a whiskey point of view alone, without even thinking about sustainability on top. So yeah, lots of different things in there. But I think if you're going to start a new business anyway, you have to believe that what you have is quite a unique proposition. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. And how hard was your, let's say, between 2013 and 2017 when the first whiskey was done, these 4 years, do you see that as a happy road, or it was like big challenges after big challenges after big challenges to be able to start producing?
I would say that it was a road that got happier, but that started quite bad. Okay. So the first 2 years we were raising money, and that was really mentally hard. I mean, not particularly hard in many other ways, because all you have to do is write a business plan and then talk to enough people until you've got the right investors. But mentally, you never know whether you're going to make it until you've actually got the funds in the bank. And so as time rolled on, and it took a full 2 years from me leaving my old job to the funds being in the bank and being able to start building, I just thought, well, maybe I'm going to have wasted 2 years of my life. We'll never get the money raised. And then what will I do? So, and also because the nature of investment raising is that people don't get back to you. They say no quite a lot. Yeah. I think we talked to 850 investors and we got 50. So your hit rate's pretty low, and that's kind of depressing as well.
Yeah, a lot of no to be, and then you challenge yourself. Am I doing the right thing?
Yes, exactly. So that was very challenging, but then we started building, which is always kind of hard as well, right? Building projects are difficult. We're in a really remote area, but at least you could see progress and things actually happening, which was pretty cool to see. But definitely, I would say it started getting enjoyable in 2017 when we started actually making spirit.
Yeah. So one thing with a new distillery is to find the right people to work with you, and you found Gordon, and the product we're going to have is the Quiet Rebels Gordon. So we'll talk about that later. But I mean, bringing someone who was with Diageo for years in a small new startup distillery with new strategies, new way to think. How did you manage to bring him in?
Well, I think with Gordon we were really lucky, and hopefully he feels that he was lucky in the other way as well. It was just, one of those things where the right thing happens at the right time. He'd been actually working at Oban, which is close to us, kind of. And of all the Diageo distilleries, it is a relatively small one. So it's not as if he'd been working at one of the huge ones. Most recently, he also really loved the West Coast. And I think he was ready to leave Diageo. And there's not that many options for where you're going to go on the West Coast if you want to manage a distillery. So kind of all the right things happened at the right time. And we just felt really lucky. We had also looked at bringing people into the area from much further afield, like from Edinburgh or something. But that's a much riskier proposition because we really are in the middle of nowhere. And if you're not used to living in that kind of community, it can be it can be unsuccessful, shall we say?
Yeah. I was born in a 1,000 people village, so I kind of understand a little bit this. Yeah.
That sounds metropolitan. In Nc'Nean, there are 50 people, and the village at the end of the road, which is half an hour away, which is where there's a shop and a restaurant, a petrol station, 300 people.
Okay.
If you want 1,000, you've got to drive for an hour and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. You're in front of also Tobermory. I've seen that. And so do you more often goes there, or it's by ferry or something like that, or no? We don't actually drive to do.
Do you want to just let me share the pictures and I can show you a bit more where we are?
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, hit perfect. Okay, so this shows you where we are. So this is Edinburgh and this is Glasgow, the central belt, and Vanessa's up here and we're here. So this island here, as you rightly say, that's the Isle of Mull with Tobermory on it. And you can see this is the distillery here, and you can actually see Tobermory just over here.
Yeah, we don't see your mouse, but
sorry. Okay, well,
on
top
the
left.
Top left, yeah.
Across the water, exactly.
The small white things there are houses. Yeah.
It looks very good. Is it old buildings or you just build them?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the distillery is old buildings. So that we wanted to do was convert old buildings. This is a very traditional farm building in Scotland, but kind of not very useful for modern farming, right? Modern farming has tractors and hay bales, and you've got to have really a barn with a big door that the tractor can drive in through, and that is not what this building was. So it was still being used, but just not very efficiently, and it's so beautiful. We just thought it would be much better to have a distillery in it.
What I have behind of me are the stills, so they are in the middle building there, I think. Huh?
Exactly. So you can see the stills in this picture. The big windows that you can see to the right of the stills in this picture are the big oh no, you can't see them very well, but it's right at the back of the building where the roof is a bit higher than the rest. Exactly.
Yeah. And the question looking at this picture is, do you have the warehouse on site as well?
Yes, we do. And if you look right into the top right there, you can see them hidden amongst the trees, the dark green buildings. So we've currently got 3 warehouses on site, and up there with the warehouses is also our little tiny bottling hall.
Okay. So you have space to build additional warehouses if it's required.
Yeah.
Yes and no.
Point of debate at the moment. It gets the further away you go in this picture, the harder it gets to build. The land tails off, that sort of stuff. So ish.
Talking about the distillery, we have a question in the chat. Will you be open to the public in spring?
Yes, we will. So by spring, depending on what time in spring, we should be open 5 days a week, 2 tours a day. But please book in advance. You would not believe how many people drive for 2 hours to the distillery only to find we're fully booked or closed or whatever. So just let us know you're coming, and we will welcome you with open arms.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. And one thing that is very important for you, for sure, it's all around everything around sustainability. So it's that word. So there's a lot that are done in different aspects to make it different from other distilleries. We can talk about many things in there. What are the most important aspects for you around that, and what are you most proud of, let's say?
So I think the three most important things are, the first is the source of energy, because distilling is energy intensive and you can't claim to have a sustainable distillery without a renewable source of energy. So we use wood chip. There is a commercial forest very, very close to the distillery. You can't see it on any of these pictures, but it's about a mile away, and we harvest the wood, we dry it in the forest for a year, and then we chip it. And the picture you can see here are the wood chips on their way into the hopper to feed our biomass boiler. So that's the first and most important one. The second is that all of our barley is organic. Now this surprises a lot of people, because they say, what about whiskey is not organic anyway? And barley is our only agricultural product that goes into the single malt, and that is all farmed organically, so no pesticides and no fertilizers. The downside of that is that it's much more expensive to buy organic barley, about 50% more than conventional barley. But the upside is that it brings this lovely texture and butteriness to the whiskey. So that's a nice kind of, that's karma, I think, for doing the right thing.
So you see that there's really a difference in the texture, the taste, or it brings something different. Okay.
Definitely it does. And it's because there's lots of reasons for it, but an organic farm can't rely on fertilizers, so it has to have a really rich soil base, basically, for the plants to draw on. And as a result, they draw a greater range of things from the soil, and then the grains themselves that are produced are much more complex. And I always compare it to like vegetables. You might have tried an organic carrot and a non-organic carrot, for example, and the organic carrot will generally taste more carroty, and it's no different with our barley. Plus we're doing the right thing for the for the environment. So that's the second. And then the third is our bottles. So the product that we're going to be talking about tonight is Quiet Rebels Gordon, and that comes in a blue bottle, which is made of 100% recycled glass, but you can see it more clearly on our normal whiskey. So instead of using flint glass, which is what most premium spirits will be bottled in, we choose to use 100% recycled clear glass. And you can see there's a kind of, I don't know how easy it really is to see on camera, but there's a kind of greenish tint to it, basically. And that saves 40% of the carbon emissions versus if that was made from just normal clear glass. And that is because it is less energy intensive to melt glass back into glass than it is sand into glass.
And one question about that, I mean, I'm sure, and I heard that before, so for a company who want to be sustainable, they usually tend to be closer to their customers. You have a farm, their customers are around them, so not big driving, not big transports and everything. And the distillery is quite remote, as you mentioned. So what do you answer to that?
The answer is it's not perfect. Yes. It would be great if we could sell all of our whiskey in Tobermory.
Yeah.
We can't. So, and the reality is that Scotch is a big export business. So, most of it goes very, very far. We did start selling only in Europe for that exact reason, to limit the distance it traveled, but that's also not a kind of long-term sustainable position. So it's not perfect. I think it's still better that someone is doing something really sustainable in Scotch than we just said, we can't be sustainable at all, so we're not going to do it.
And how was your approach seen by your peers in the whiskey industry, in the Scotch industry precisely?
I would say this is a tale of two halves. So the first thing to say is that in general, the Scotch industry is ridiculously friendly. It is unlike any other industry I have ever seen. And all of that comes from this historical collaboration between players for blends. So they're all selling to each other. So they're competitors, but also, traders or business partners, I guess. So in general, everybody is very friendly and very helpful. On the sustainability side, I would say that there has been met with some, not resistance because they don't think it's the right thing to do, but annoyance that a new player got there first, I think. So some challenge to whether what we're saying is right, I think, but that really has come from only a very few small places. Well, maybe big places, but a few big places. In general, I would say that.
Do you think it's kind of a don't do that, because then we will have to do that also ourselves? Is that kind of don't disrupt the thing? It works.
No, because I do think actually the Scotch industry is quite committed to a path to get more sustainable, just in my opinion too slowly. So it was more that I think we got there first and stolen the thunder than anything else. Nice. I would say that I have heard more recently, I have heard comments in the industry which focus much more on collaboration than on competition, on sustainability specifically. And I think that is a really positive thing. So I think that sort of initial reaction we got is probably fading as people realize that, you know, it shouldn't be about competition. We're actually trying to do something for the good of the planet here. And for the industry, by the way.
It's very good, because ever since you announced like the whole process you would be going through, we've seen more and more products coming from bigger distilleries coming out as organic. You see Nc'Nean now has full lines of organic whiskey. It's a first step. It's a good first step. And I think today Bangladesh announced that they received their full B Corp certification, and they were very proud. And I wouldn't say they wouldn't have done it if you didn't announce Nc'Nean, but it sure is a game changer. As, oh wow, someone is doing it. We are big. We have the means to do it, and it's the trend. We should hop on before it's too late. You know?
Although actually, Bruichladdich were actually B Corp certified before us. I think probably what they announced today was a recertification, so they've just kept it up. But a really good example of that, I think, is our bottles, because we were told by every glass manufacturer we ran that no one in the premium spirits industry would ever want 100% recycled glass. It didn't look perfect enough. And we just happened to come across this amazing company called Estelle, who had been working on this 100% recycled glass project for 5 years. And they, you know, with great kind of bravery, I guess, from them, because against probably what they were being told, and we happened to find them at the same time. And I think now we've had amazing feedback on the bottle, and it's really beautiful and so on. And I think that's given other people the confidence to look away from the traditional super premium extra flint clear glass, as it's called.
But it's funny because, like, we like to drink whiskey, but most whiskey drinkers are also a bit of collectors. So if it's not perfect, then you need several bottles to compare and see what's the difference. I mean, it's a good set. Honestly, it's a good selling argument right there. Like, oh, grab 2 bottles. They're not exactly the same. You can spend hours like looking them out, and especially I do lots of whiskey photography, so it's I probably snag a few quiet rubbles and try to bring out the differences on Instagram. And
perfect.
just before jumping in the whiskey itself, there is you're a small size distillery. Obviously, we saw that on the picture. I think you can go up to 100,000 liters right now.
Roughly, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Do you produce that, or you're still growing to that number?
No, the answer is that until about a year ago, we were producing just under 100,000 litres of pure alcohol a year, and now we're producing about 114,000.
Oh, okay.
So in matured stock, we've got 100k LPA, and we're now starting to produce a little bit more. So,
how many casks do you have right now in the warehouses? Talking about numbers,
I think 3,000.
3,000. Yeah,
I think that's right. Yeah.
And so, talking about all that warehouse and production and new company, there is also that questions that is there for every new company. I mean, taking the decision to release products, even if they are really, really young, or keep them to age them and then release them later. You need your money now. You need to reinvest. And So
Yeah.
how do you live with this challenge?
Well, we have always been very committed to only releasing what we feel is high enough quality. So we haven't actually had that challenge yet, but I think honestly we would just raise more money rather than release rubbish whiskey if we had it. But the reality of a young distillery is that you need to make fantastic quality spirit, and a lot of our focus from a production point of view is on the spirit, not on the barrels. And then you need to put it into great barrels. And then what will happen is that some of those barrels will be great at 3 years old. Some of them will need a bit longer. And we finding our kind of, so we blend everything still by hand. So Matt will taste every single cask before we decide to use it. And the kind of reject rate, if you like, from when we were only tasting a 3-year-old set of barrels versus now we have access to 3 to 6-year-olds, the reject rate for the younger casks is much higher. So as it matures, you get access to more of the stock, but we'd always planned our growth to be such that we weren't trying to sell all 100,000 litres of pure alcohol in the first year. So you have that ability to pick the right casks as you go.
And what you've said about having a great, let's say, distillate or something at the beginning, right from the still, something great, is it one of the things that Jim Swan bring you when you were working with him at the beginning? Because this is the things that new distilleries are doing more than older distilleries. Older distilleries, they just do something and then just correct everything in a cask for 15 years.
Exactly.
Now, a lot of new distilleries, we saw really good 3, 4, 5 years old whiskey, but they taste like 15 years old whiskey. Was it something brought to you by Jim Swan?
Yeah, Jim was really instrumental in all of our the whole of our recipe, basically, all the way from milling through to maturation. We kind of designed every bit step by step. But I think his general philosophy was make great quality spirit that you'd really want to drink straight off the still, and then put it into very great casks, and you've got great whiskey.
Yeah, nice. I'm really looking forward to taste these products. I heard and I rate great things, so really looking forward. So let's talk about the whiskey then.
Yes.
For sure, in fact, there are two things. You do whiskey and you do also something else. We're going to have like your non-gin also in the order. So let's start with this and we'll go back to the whiskey. So this is not a gin. This is a gin, non-gin.
It's not a gin, exactly.
This is not a gin product.
If you just share the pictures again, I've got a picture of the bottle.
It's very confusing for a gin drinking country.
Well, let me explain where this came from first, and then I'll explain why it's not a gin. So, and this ties in very nicely to the conversation we were just having, Eric, about the quality of the spirit. So, many distilleries planned to sell a gin in those first 3 years when you haven't got any whiskey produced. We had never planned that. This was not in the business plan. But maybe a year or two into our production, when we didn't yet have any product out, a lady actually from Japan came to the distillery and said, when we let her taste the new make, "This is the most delicious new make I've ever tasted. You should bottle it." And I thought, well, I agree, because I actually love new make, but I thought that seemed like a bit of a niche proposition for most other people out there. And at the same time, I went out around the distillery foraging, and that really opened my eyes to all of the amazing things that grow around the distillery. And I thought, well, what if we could combine these two things? So we started working on a project to combine locally foraged herbs with our new make. Now, it actually ended up much closer to a gin, because to make the flavors work and balance, we had to add quite a lot of juniper and coriander. So the main flavor profile that you get, the main botanicals that we add, are juniper, coriander, and bog myrtle, which is the leaf that you can see on the front of the bottle. And it grows everywhere around the distillery. We forage all of it by hand and dry it under the stills, and it's a kind of lovely citrus flavor. But the development of it was tricky because unlike when you make gin, you've got grain neutral spirit, so it tastes of nothing. It's been distilled to 96%. It's vodka basically, and it's like I always say, it's like painting on a white bit of paper. You add the flavors and it comes out the same. We were working with our 63% new make, which is really full of flavor. So getting the balance right between malt and botanical, or malted spirit, I should say, and botanicals was really tricky. And that is also why it's not a gin. So gin has to start as 96% ethyl alcohol with no underlying taste, and ours doesn't. But the benefit is you get something that's got lots of those delicious botanical notes that you'd recognize from a gin, but it also has this lovely malty undertone that comes from our new make spirit. So we say it's like gin and whiskey had a baby. But to drink it, it works super well in any kind of typical gin cocktail. It works particularly well in a Negroni, but if you want to just drink it with tonic or in a martini, it does really well in all those sorts of things.
As a gin lover, I'm really looking to taste that too.
Yeah, I was mostly eyeing the whiskey, but because I have several gins on my shelves, but now, I think I'm gonna pull the trigger on that one.
Yeah, it's really everyone especially everyone who likes gin and whiskey totally loves it, because it's like it's a really cool combination.
So let's talk about the whiskey now. So in general, in fact, a few things. I know you have organic barley, 100% organic barley. I've seen also read someplace that you're really playing with the yeast to find different flavors. This is something also that other distilleries not do that much. And is it something that you were doing just to find your profile, or you will continue to play with that to find other?
No, it's actually just a continuous play. So I've always found the fermentation bit fascinating, because there's a big craft beer scene in the UK. Craft brewers really love yeast and talk about it a lot, and I'm like, but in whiskey we're distilling beer, why is no one talking about yeast? I don't understand. So we've always played around with it a lot. Our normal whiskey, which is our normal spirit, I should say, which is what goes into Quiet Rebels Gordon, it's also what goes into our core whiskey, which looks like this, has 2 yeasts. So that alone is unusual. We also ferment for up to 114 hours, which is a super long time. And then aside from that, we run different spirit recipes, which have either different cut points or different yeasts. And those go as separate parcels in the warehouse that we can draw on to make interesting releases. But
so you have different ingredients then to play with that and
exactly
that. So that's nice,
Exactly. And we haven't even talked about casks yet, which provides a whole different set of ingredients, right?
Absolutely.
So the range of what you can create is super interesting.
Yeah. No, you're right. So if we talked about what we're going to have, the Gordon product, I know it's different than the regular product with the casks that are in there. The regular product will be will be available at SAQ as a regular product. Can you explain the difference between the two? Do you have the cask difference and everything?
Yes, I do. So this product is called Quiet Rebels Gordon, and we release a Quiet Rebels limited edition every October. And it is all about celebrating someone in the team. And you get your Quiet Rebels release in the order you join the company. So mine was the first, then Lorna, who actually helped with the build phase and now is one of our distillers, and then Gordon, who's our distillery manager. And our blender sits down with this person a year in advance and tries to create a whiskey that reflects their flavor preferences in whiskey. And obviously, because you've only got a year out, mostly this is going to be done by casks, either different cask combinations or finishes. And in this one, we have everything. So our normal cask makeup for our core is 2% sherry, so really small amount of sherry. And then the rest roughly split between STR red wine barrels and ex-bourbon barrels. But for Quiet Rebels Gordon, it's much more focused on STR, sherry, and then it's got a small amount of Rive, which is a French sweet wine. Sorry, my camera's just gone a bit funny. Let me just get it to reset. No.
Just just move it a little bit. It will do the focus again.
There we go.
Yeah, you're back.
There we go. So
then you have, as you mentioned,
STR red wine.
STR 74%, sherry Oloroso 19%,
exactly correct,
and then 7% for Rive.
Exactly. And just as a note, all of this info is always, for any of the releases we do, is always on our website. So we try to be as transparent as possible about what goes into the bottle, because
that's a nice thing to do as well, definitely. And on the taste, how would you describe this product? Do you personally like it better than your product that you've done 2 years ago? Or
great question there.
No, I think so. There's a great debate amongst our team as to whether, in general, they prefer our ex-bourbon barrels or our STR barrels. And in general, I would say that is reflected in the whiskey drinking world. Some people love one, some people love the other. I prefer ex-bourbon, and my release was very bourbon heavy. But Gordon really loves these rich, fruity tastes in whiskey. And his brief to Matt was not very specific. He said, it's just got to be tasty, tasty. But what you get from it is it's a very good whiskey for this time of year. It's really rich and fruity. It's kind of like a Christmas cake. It's quite marzipan-y. It's got some orange peel in there. So it really feels like a lovely Christmassy sort of whiskey.
Nice. Ooh. So for sure, for us, when we do this group order, we will probably receive it in summer, but that's another debate. That's another
debate. We won't drink it all at once. It's fine.
So when some distilleries, they try to have one flavor profile, they put like really forward, and then they work with different casks, but you always get this main line. Is it something you are aiming to, or like you just want to experiment and put out good whiskey, whatever the profile is?
No, I think it's a bit of a mix, but for our normal Nc'Nean, we aim for that to be very consistent. So that's the first thing. That should always be consistent. The second is that I think it's really important for all of our products to have a consistent theme running through them, even if they're quite different. So, we've released single tequila casks. We've released all sorts of different things. The yeast experiments we've released often in our spring special. But I still want them to be recognizably Nc'Nean, whether that's the kind of butteriness and the texture of the whiskey, or whether it's the kind of light, fruity flavor of our spirit.
Okay, and we have a question linked kind of directly to that in the chat. There's been a whole discussion about terroir, and it exists for wine. It doesn't exist for whiskey. No, it exists for whiskey. You just don't notice it, And do you think being very local, using local ingredients and being sustainable and all, do you think terroir has an impact on your whiskey? Or are you aiming for something like that? Or
so I believe it has an impact, because we can see that even without thinking about geographical farming locations. We can see that by changing the barley and using organic. So it definitely has an impact. For me, it's not, I guess, what I'm most interested in. Although actually now when we first started distilling, we had to buy grain from 10 farmers and basically mix it all together for sort of logistical reasons. So we were never distilling one farm at once. It was just a blend, if you like, from 10 farms. We are now buying just from 2 farms and distilling them separately. So we're but we really did that not because we want to do any kind of side-by-side comparisons, although we might do one as a special. We really did it because we wanted to investigate or really work with 2 farmers only to try and improve their carbon footprint even further. And you can't do that with 10. So
for sure.
Nice. And there's a comment there in the chat as well, and I really think it's totally true. And for whiskey lovers like us, is something we like a lot, is the transparencies. And we know, and you share about your yeast, about your barley, about the cask, about and the old distilleries. This is the product. This is the name. Drink it. Yeah, but can you
exactly? To be fair to them, it's probably because the records are lost like 20 years ago somewhere, and they haven't got a clue.
Yeah, maybe that's a good point.
But
and so,
I do think that philosophically, I think that's a lot of the newer distilleries adopting that. I do think it's really important, and I think there's nothing to hide. So why would you?
Yeah, I would not be able to start a distillery tomorrow even if I have the old recipe. So share it. So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
And it helps to taste it when you know what's in there compared to others, and that's what's nice.
It's just interesting, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So talking about your whiskeys, there are different series. So there's the regular product. I think you do some single cask, if I'm right.
Single casks come in a box that looks a little bit like this.
So how do you manage the single cask? Do you want to go in different directions, try to show different aspects of Nc'Nean, or?
Yeah, the single casks we've done have generally been about interesting cask finishes. So I mentioned tequila. We've done lots of interesting cask finishes, and then the spirit experiments tend to fall into our Huntress special edition, which is a batch rather than just a single cask. And the Huntress is we normally release in kind of March, April time, and that's a bit smaller and it's a bit geekier. And the first two have been about our yeast experiments, and then the one next year is going to be about different spirit recipes and what happens when you change from one spirit recipe to the other. So that's really where we go like full spirit geek.
If you ever do a Burgundy, let me know.
A Burgundy?
Oh yeah. Oh, a Burgundy cask. Yeah, I could help on getting a very good quality cask if you want.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
So this is the one series, the Huntress, as you mentioned, and then there's the Rebels, the Quiet Rebels that we're going to have. That is another one.
Yeah.
So regular single cask, Huntress, and then the Quiet Rebels. Do you plan to have more series like this? I mean, you're still a small distillery. It's hard to have like 10 different series.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Do you have a plan? And okay, this is the strategy. We are looking to do maybe this and this kind of stuff, or you just?
Well, the two things that we kind of have in the pipeline, which are definitely potentials rather than definites. One is cask strength. So we've just released as a kind of trial a cask strength version of our normal whiskey. And we've released it in Germany just because it's quite a big market for us, and it was actually their idea, so they got first dibs. So we've released that, and if that goes well, then we'd roll that out. And we're also looking at doing some collaborations because we don't really have anywhere in the portfolio that collaborations could sit at the moment, so that might be another bit to it. But once we've done that, I think that's absolutely plenty, and we just need to keep focused on what we've already done.
Yeah, the challenge when it starts selling and the word is everywhere, then you will have a lot of people asking for this and this and this and this. So yeah, it will be your challenge, a good challenge then.
Yeah,
but
good challenge to have.
Nick, is there any other questions?
Yeah, I might have two. One very whiskey related. Lots of I don't want to say beginners, but just whiskey drinkers know a bit about casking because they've read on it, barley, local barley, organic barley. But what about fermentation? I know a bit about it, but what does it bring to have longer fermentation times to your whiskey?
Basically, more flavor. So the yeast is with the wash for longer, and it just allows that next level of evolution of the flavor development. It doesn't particularly get you any more alcohol, which is why some of the big boys won't do it, because you're not actually being able to produce more whiskey, but you're getting more depth and interesting flavor. And I think when you think about distilling, you've got the barley, and then once you're into the fermentation, that's where the flavor is created. Once you're into distilling, that is a purification process, as we probably all learn in chemistry at some point. So I really have always been very keen that we focus on maximizing that interest that develops in the fermentation stage. And we do other things to maximize that as well. So for example, we leave the mash to sit for an hour, just like if you're cooking and you've got something on the hob and you leave it to simmer for an hour, the flavor develops. Well, we do the same. But again, it's inefficient in time. And so it's something we can do with the privilege of being a small distillery without having the kind of 24/7 operations of the big guys.
For sure. And the last one is about something that's been discussed a lot in recent years, especially in face of certain whiskey writer comments. And so how about being a woman in the Scotch industry and starting out, like, you didn't have any position, like Rachel Berry, she started at the bottom and then just leveled up. So like she was starting to get a name out there, but you just started, boom. So how about that? Was it, I guess I don't know, I'll let you answer.
Well, I think to begin with, honestly, I didn't even think about it. It did not cross my mind that whiskey and women was anything unusual. So that was the first 4 years, and no one really said anything for the first 4 years. And then once we kind of went public, once we actually had the distillery up and running, I started to get lots of questions like, do you actually like whiskey? And I was like, yeah, you'd never ask a man who'd spent at that point 4 years, now 10 years, working on distillery, whether you actually like whiskey. You just assume that they did. So I think there is definitely a lot of misconception still about both who works in the industry and who drinks whiskey. But I would say that I've never encountered any nastiness, if that makes sense. It's just kind of lack of information and assumptions that are untrue. So yeah, I've never found it to be a problem. I've never found it to be a problem personally, but what I do see as a problem is still that this perception that women don't drink whiskey, and I think that's a great shame. And if I could encourage more women to feel comfortable drinking whiskey, or persuade more men that they should introduce women to whiskey, or whatever it is, to get a greater diversity of people either working in the industry or drinking whiskey, then that will be a success.
And I think just to add on top of that, in whiskey clubs, we see more women in tasting, and I do private tastings. And when you just, drinking whiskey is something, but tasting the whiskey and try to enjoy it and take time, then if you do that, so everyone can like whiskey then, because there are a lot of flavors.
Exactly.
There are a lot of things in there. So drinking and tasting are two different things.
Yeah, and from a business point of view, why would you create something and cut 50% of like your consumers? It doesn't make any sense.
Makes no sense.
No.
So time flies. Maybe one last questions if there are others.
I know two little birds told me that if you were to buy a bottle at SAQ, you could bring it to the distillery and fill it. Is that happening or not?
It is happening. Refill it. Exactly. So if you buy one at SAQ and you drink it all, bring the empty bottle and you can refill it at the distillery.
So Tony Crow, you should definitely do that, because Tony was the one asking.
One that he said he was cut. Yeah, definitely, exactly.
That's nice. That's a good thing. And there's a question also, I think, related to, do we cover that?
I think there was a rye. Rye whiskey is getting extremely popular, and
the answer is no, though. That's an easy answer. No plans for rye.
And was it really complicated at the beginning to find the right yeast to use for you? Have you tried?
No, that was.
Things?
No, well, that was a lot of Jim Swan's influence, actually.
Oh, okay.
He was also very big on yeast, and he pointed us in the direction of the 2 yeasts that we use now. And we've kind of played around with the proportions and things, but fundamentally our core spirit recipe is still based on the 2 yeasts that he pointed us towards. And actually, I think he would be turning in his grave if he knew that we were doing all the yeast experiments, because he felt like, I've nailed it and these are the ones. So
nice, awesome. So yeah, so let's wrap it up. In fact, it's already been 50 minutes. It's awesome. Thank you a lot for your time. It's really appreciated. I'm sure, and we had a few comments during the presentation. People like that, and I saw so people already went to the SAQ website and they bought the bottle. So I mean,
amazing.
So now we're going to do that group order to go with the Quiet Rebel Gordon version that you sold quite well. I think I'm really looking to taste it, as well as the gin non-gin thing. I'm going to grab one bottle for sure. So yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciated, and looking forward maybe to have another discussion with you in the future.
Definitely.
Or other products,
definitely.
Single cask or anything in the future, we will be really happy to have other conversation with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It's been super fun.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nick.
All right.
Merci beaucoup, Nick. Merci d'avoir co-animé avec moi. And again, thank you, Annabel. And it's evening for you, so have a good evening.
Have a good dram.
Thank you. Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.